What's up everybody, this is Hadron here. What I want to discuss today is, does Destiny 2's Endgame make business sense?
Fella's doing the hero thing in the plaza. Me? I've got a date with whoever's behind this. It'll be a short date.
Now if you've been playing Destiny 2 and have been on the internet at all lately, you probably have heard complaints about the Destiny 2 Endgame. Issues have been brought up such as, there's nothing left to do after I hit level 305. The rewards for doing hard activities are not good enough. There is no differentiation between someone who completed a hard task and someone who did not. In Destiny 1, I used to keep playing to get the perfect roll on my weapon, and Destiny 2 ruined that with fixed perks, and the grind is missing. Now I'm sure there are a lot more, and I do not plan on covering these topics extensively in this video, but I do want to cover why having less to do in Destiny 2 and focusing on the casual player's experience may make business sense for Activision and Bungie. From here on out, I'll use Activision and Bungie interchangeably, and it is not my intention to say Activision forced Bungie to do these things. The first thing we need to unpack is what metrics are good for Bungie and Activision. This will help us understand what their goals are and why certain game decisions were made. As is for any business, revenue is going to be a large factor. And now that Bungie is under the Activision family, revenue is almost always going to be the bottom line. The more revenue a game brings in, the better, and the more importantly, the more profit a game brings in, the better. Making more money per employee that worked on the game is going to bring more value to Activision's shareholders. Usage is another metric that a lot of companies strive for. In other words, how long and how often do you play in terms of the video game industry? Now, using an example, Facebook and Google really have taken the idea that more people using their products, the better it is for them as a business. However, their main source of revenue is advertising. So the more usage they have, the more advertisers they can sign up, and the more advertisers will pay per advertisement. Plus, both Facebook and Google have endless information about end users, can target specific people for specific products, making the advertisement more likely to be successful and drive a sale. This allows them to charge a premium for ad space. Now let's take a look at Destiny 2. Activision does not directly make more money the more you play, and they also do not make more money from third-party advertising. They do want you to buy future downloadable content, so they want you to be happy, but driving you to play 80 hours a week is not necessarily in their best interest. Let's say playtime is great for marketing purposes and is an indicator of future DLC sales, but is not necessarily a metric that they need maxed in order to be successful. Another important metric, especially for a product or game, and it tends to grow, is how many new customers are being attracted. This obviously helps our first metric of revenue, but it also indicates how many employees Bungie can afford to keep maintaining and enhancing the game. New players should benefit Activision and hardcore players in the end because it will continue investment in Destiny 2. One last metric I want to cover is customer loyalty. The happier a customer is with the game, the more likely they are to buy downloadable content and sequels. The video game industry is interesting because if a game is good and has mass appeal, it will generally get lots of sales. Customer loyalty is usually expressed in terms of the developer or a franchise rather than the parent company. A perfect example of a franchise is Call of Duty. It has different development team every year, but the customer may buy every single version because they love the franchise. A good example of a developer loyalty is BioWare. A customer that loved Mass Effect may try out Dragon Age. In the case of Destiny 2, successful customer loyalty is customers that buy future expansions and sequels to the game. This is probably the only metric that is impacted by the current endgame controversies because the players that aren't happy may not buy future content. Then again, Activision may be betting that you're already hooked and you're going to buy this content regardless. Taking a look back at the four metrics we just discussed, revenue, customer loyalty, and continuing to bring in new players should increase when focusing on the casual player base, because the goal will be to keep the masses happy. The more people that are happy, the more people that will buy Bungie's future content. Usage per player may go down, but overall usage should go up. A good example of how Bungie likes to think about this is in the last Iron Banner, Bungie mentioned the metric that 1,500 years of Iron Banner were played across all players. Now I believe they're going to continue expressing numbers holistically rather than a per player number because that number is probably more important to them and they'd rather say that than say each player has played 2.5 hours of Iron Banner. So we established that revenue is the most important metric. So how does Destiny 2 make money? So far they make money through the initial purchase of the game, purchases of downloadable content, and through silver purchases at the Eververse store, which is Destiny 2's version of loot boxes. Now Activision makes money on all the previously mentioned items, plus all of their games. Those games downloadable content, and the category I refer to as microtransactions. For the sake of my argument, microtransactions will include loot boxes and small cosmetic game purchases that you will most likely find in free-to-play games. Now that we have some of our base points established, metrics to drive for, to find, and how Activision makes money, we can make logical hypotheses at why Destiny 2 was designed the way it was. Remember, the main goal is to improve upon the metrics we went over before. It does seem clear that Bungie focused on the casual player for Destiny 2, rather than the hardcore Destiny 1 fanboy who ran Vault of Glass the day before Destiny 2 came out. The most important reason is there are more casual players than hardcore Destiny 1 fanboys. That's including the people who tried Destiny 1 and left, and brand new players that haven't tried Destiny 1 at all. I believe the last statistic was that 18% of players completed the Leviathan raid, which is a good indication that the hardcore player base is sitting securely in the minority of the player base. Some may be quick to point out that a certain percentage of people quit before hitting max level, insinuating they are not real players and should not be counted. But Activision already made $60 on them, so it is still helping them hit the revenue metrics. Also, we need to remember, Christmas is still coming up, and there will be a massive number of new players joining us in late December, bringing the hardcore player base down to an even lower percentage. The hardcore fan base are more likely to pre-order, get the game on day one, and play all the content first. So the fact that less than 20% of this group has beaten the raid really proves that the hardcore fan base is much smaller than the target audience. The next reason Bungie focused on the casual player base is the fall off of Destiny 1 players was pretty massive, and Bungie was likely tasked with how to improve that. They did this by not locking rewards behind difficult content, and by increasing the rate powerful gear drop, allowing a player to level up. In Destiny 1, even through the Taken King, players had to spend an excruciatingly long period of time to level up their characters. To a casual player who can only play a few hours a week, it seems impossible to keep up. All of their friends have moved on to bigger and better things, while they are stuck trying to complete a normal nightfall. This created a difficulty spike for the casual player and made them lose interest much faster. In Destiny 2, after you get your character leveled up, you can keep up with your friends with just a few hours a week without the fear of being left behind. You can even get 4 pieces of powerful gear to level you up for being a part of an active clan. This increases your chances of playing as a casual, because your clanmates will still invite you to participate in activities, and because you're not left too far behind. That mixed in with numerous activities you can complete solo, like flashpoints and call to arms, makes it really easy for the casual player to stay engaged. So why would Activision want us to play less Destiny 2? Besides the fact that casual gamers do not have enough time to keep up, well, Activision happens to own many of the most popular multiplayer titles on console and PC. Overwatch, Call of Duty, and Destiny are all very similar in terms of target audience. Many people may own 2 or all 3. If someone spends all their available time gaming in Destiny 2, then that leaves no time left over for Overwatch or Call of Duty. All 3 games have overlapping revenue models as well, meaning to make the most money, Activision wants you to purchase all 3 games at launch for $60, buy all the downloadable content for Destiny 2 and Call of Duty, and ideally purchase some content through microtransactions. This isn't even considering all the other fantastic games Blizzard created, like World of Warcraft, Heroes of the Storm, and Hearthstone. The target audiences overlap here some, but not nearly as much as Overwatch, Call of Duty, and Destiny 2 do. Also, the average gamer is getting older. Different sources have different average numbers, but they're all in their 30s. This means the average gamer is time constrained and not necessarily financially constrained. A 31-year-old professional with a job can afford 3 games and downloadable content, but does not have time to play each game every week if it takes too long to get this to the same status of players who play 30+ hours a week on one game. Now let's bring up microtransactions. There are numerous studies on this too, but I found an article on GameRant that 2.2% of the players of free-to-play games make up 50% of the revenue. Another important number is the spend per player is about $24. Now these are for free-to-play games, which is a little different than Destiny 2, but I think it's fair to use this in our example, because it is likely that less money will be spent on loot boxes because Destiny 2 and Call of Duty are not free, meaning I am not over-accounting for Activision's reliance on the loot box revenue system. So let's do a little math on Activision's ideal client. They buy Destiny 2, Overwatch, and Call of Duty for $60 each. They buy the downloadable content for Destiny 2 for $35 and Call of Duty for $40. And they spend $24 per game on loot boxes. That is a total of $327, and loot boxes makes up just 22% of that. Remember, it is probably less than that, because these are not free-to-play games, and also remember that only 2% of people are generating this much revenue, so it's far more volatile and risky than the standard game. Also, given that this number is based on free-to-play games, I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that games like these generate between 10 and 20% of the revenue from loot box purchases. So if I'm Activision, how do I drive more customers towards the ideal state that we just went over? First of all, I need to make great games. Second, I need to make sure one game does not take up all the free time of my average player. If one game satisfies their gaming needs, I'm missing out on them potentially buying my other games. or even if the player did buy multiple games, they may not buy the extra content for each game. Plus, if they stop playing one game altogether, they definitely will not buy loot boxes for that game. So Activision wants their customers to enjoy the game, but not feel like they need to play it 40 hours a week to keep up with the people who only play one game. They also want their customer to rotate between their games and continue to stay engaged in order to sell them on future content and loot boxes. So you buy my points up until now, but why take away the endgame grind for the hardcore fan base? I think the answer is twofold. 1. They do not want to alienate the casual player base. They may be excited about the first Better Devils, but then when they get rocked by a God Roll Better Devils in the Crucible, they'll be angry about it, and after learning their only way to get the God Roll weapon is to play a bunch more, and it's random, they'll give up because they see it as unfair. The second point is, I think the grind being gone is more of a perception issue, and maybe it's more correct to say the grind the game offers is not worth it. I have put in 20 to 30 hours a week since launch, and although I have all my characters at 305, I'm still missing a few weapons, exotic pieces, and plus I have weapons and gear that are not max level. So the grind for me now is to complete my collection and make sure they're all at the max level. The only way to do this is to continue completing milestones for powerful rewards, or farm planetary tokens and hope I find a vendor when they're handing out 300 power level engrams. So the main reason to eliminate the grind still comes down to player retention and revenue. So after all that discussion, I do believe the current Destiny 2 endgame makes business sense. And that's probably why Bungie and Activision made the decisions they did. So the main metrics Activision wants to drive are revenue, usage, new customers, and customer loyalty. These metrics, in theory, should all improve when focusing on the casual game market. Even if you as a hardcore player plays half as much, those 15 hours per week spread across 8 new players makes it easy to bump the overall playtime up. Activision makes money by players buying their games and content. The majority of the revenue comes from the base game purchase and downloadable content, making it extremely important to make the game appealing to the masses. Activision can keep the masses happy by having less rewards behind difficult content, and by requiring less time to reach max level. This allows more casual players to always be able to play with their friends and clans. This gives the hardcore fanbase less reason to grind for better things, because they already have most of the better things. That said, is there still hope for the hardcore fans? I think yes. I know there's been a lot of unrest in the hardcore community, and players want to see changes faster. If you have ever worked in software, you might know it's difficult to get changes out in 1 month, much less take in feedback, design a change that makes sense and works across all use cases, then deliver the patch. Plus, if you look at Destiny 2's launch schedule, there are likely things that needed to be managed, like releasing the raid, faction rally, and Iron Banner. All of these things likely took multiple people to launch and manage. Bungie has a history of listening to their fans. Look how far Destiny 1 has come over the years. So let's not lose hope, Guardians. Let's make the community the best it can be. How about a new player? Be one example of the guided games that didn't suck. And by all means, continue to provide constructive feedback at the applicable forums. I hope this video provided a different perspective and helped provide an understanding of the complex task it is to be successful in the gaming industry. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.